In a world of constant change, collaboration and new knowledge are more important than ever. In the HELA project, the goal is clear: to create and pilot a new study module for the people working at universities and universities of applied sciences. Within the scope of this module, participants will learn everything from the use of new digital equipment and the didactic design of courses to developmental work research.
Visionen bakom HELA-projektet är att skapa möjligheter för lärare att utveckla sin pedagogiska förmåga och kompetens så att vi når en nationell och internationellt högstående nivå på universitetsundervisningen.
The partners in the HELA project offer numerous opportunities to explore the future of learning through cutting-edge technology and methods. This further enhances the viability of a core element of the project, the fundamental connection to research.
Här finns flera olika saker som är unika. Dels är det att det här är ett forskningsunderstött projekt där vi också beforskar själva processen och på det sättet förhåller oss väldigt källkritiska till de pedagogiska koncept som vi försöker utveckla. Det andra är det att vi har en betoning på teknologiska frågor, digital pedagogik. Det är mycket som händer på det här området och det är ganska tufft för många lärare att hänga med. Vi måste också få våra undervisningsutrymmen att fungera på ett kvalificerat sätt.
One important and unique aspect of the HELA project is the multilingual approach, mirroring the needs of today's society and workplaces.
Finland is becoming multicultural. That means that we need multiple languages in teaching. And this program or this project is a particular advantage to society in that sense that we provide teaching in variety of languages, or 3 languages at least, including Finnish, Swedish, and English. So that is a strength, and that allows more people to be able to access these teaching and courses that we have. That is a strength.
The HELA project is one of the key projects of the Ministry of Education and Culture and is a collaboration between 5 universities and universities of applied sciences. The goal is also to include new courses within the framework of the module, such as, for instance, leadership.
Ja se on oikeastaan sen takia, kun opettajat nykyään toimii hyvin erilaisessa ympäristössä kuin ennen. Ja suurimmassa osassa korkeakoulussa ja yliopistoissa on nykyään rakennettu opinnot niin, että ne tarjotaan koulutusohjelmittain. Ja opettajat kaikki toimii koulutusohjelman alla, tai sitten he jopa osa niin on vastuussa sitä koulutusohjelmasta ja johtaa. Eli he johtaa samalla, heillä on alaisia, mutta sitten samaan aikaan he johtaa myös sitä opiskelijoiden oppimista. Eli tarvitaan tästä pedagogista johtamista.
This fall we'll see the project gear up by offering its first full courses. Expectations are high and enrollment has been impressive.
Jag tror att vi alla förstår idag att högskolornas pedagogiska kvaliteter är någonting som både studenterna uppskattar men också arbetsmarknaden. Vi behöver duktigt folk på det här området. De flesta kurser är alltså fullbokade utan att vi egentligen har marknadsfört dem. Intresset är stort.
Through completing the program, participants can obtain teacher qualifications in their chosen subject. If you want more information on the HELA project, please visit hela60.com.
On behalf of the HELA group, I want to welcome you to this seminar. And before I continue, this seminar will be recorded, but only the presenters. But we will also share the link publicly later on. The HELA project has developed a teacher qualification program, as well as new courses in higher education pedagogy. 5 organizations have collaborated to achieve the project, and they've been part of planning this seminar. We cherish these kind of extended networks, these arenas for collaboration, and we hope that this seminar will make it possible for you to reflect upon your teaching practice and discuss it with other people and other teachers and personnel in higher education. Collaboration is important to us because we believe that together we are better prepared for the future. Although the project is ending this year, our work continues. The interest for higher education pedagogy is great, and more organizations will join our extended networks. We will continue to promote collaboration on different levels, and we want to continue developing a program in higher education pedagogy that answers to the needs of personnel and students. This seminar is our way of saying goodbye and hello at the same time. My name is Charlotta Hilli. I work at Åbo Academy University, and together with Sanna Eronen, I have developed courses and taught higher education pedagogy during these past 3 years. Sanna, over to you.
Kiitos Lotta. Ja lämpimästi tervetuloa minunkin puolesta tähän Digi Higher Education päivään. Mä oon siis yksi monista Hella-hankkeen toimijoista. Meitä on ollut paljon mukana tässä hankkeessa ja mun oikea työmaani on Vaasan yliopistossa ja se on laadukkaan digiopetuksen edistämisessä. Hankkeen aikana minä olen saanut sukeltaa tällaiseen yhteisölliseen korkeakouluopettajakoulutuksen kehittämistyöhön, niin kuin me monet muutkin. Ja mulle itselle tämä on ollut sellainen hyvä hetki, miten muistaa se juuri, mitä Charlotte tuossa kertoi, että me ollaan yhdessä luotu kursseja ja vedetty niitä, niin muistaa taas, miten opettavaista ja innostavaa tällainen yhteisopettajuus voikaan olla. Suosittelen sitä lämmöllä kaikille. Opettakaa yhdessä. Takana on tuntikaupalla tällaista oppimismuotoilua, digitukea, voisin sanoa myös, että digihikeä välillä. Kaikki ei aina mene ihan putkeen, mutta siitäkin selvitään. Onnistumisia, kompastumisia, jatkokehittelyä, uusia ideoita. Rautainen annos korkeakoulupedagogiikkaa, minullekin tarvitsen sitä todella, ja sitten paljon ehkä sellaisia isoja unelmia sen arkisen puurtamisen rinnalla. Se, että meillä on tämmöinen korkeakoulupedagogiikan kokonaisuus nyt koottuna, on tosi tärkeä askel. Myös Vaasan yliopiston näkökulmasta, varmasti kaikille muillekin mukana olleille korkeakouluille. Mutta mun mielestä ei ole mikään pieni juttu sekään, että jos tämä hanke on synnyttänyt tuolla kahvihuoneissa ja käytävillä ja turuilla ja toreilla lisää sellaista oppimisajattelua, haastavaa keskustelua ja tämmöisiä opetusajattelua edistäviä kohtaamisia, niin se on aika mahtavaa myös. Sillä mun mielestä just näissä keskustelevissa opettajayhteisöissä on voimaa. Ja me kaikki tarvitaan tähän välillä aika rankkaakin opetusarkeen niin sellaisia innostavia oivalluksia tuovia dialogeja ja kohtaamisia, joiden kautta me sitten jaksetaan lähteä uudistumaan ja uudistamaan ja pysymään mukana tässä kehityksessä, joka välillä tuntuu varmaan teistä jokaisesta aika huimalta. Opettajilta vaaditaan tänä päivänä aika paljon. Me toivotaan, että tämä päivä olisi innostava alku perinteelle, jota me voitaisiin yhdessä lähteä kehittämään. Että kerran vuodessa meillä täällä Vaasassa olisi tällainen yhteinen päivä, jolloin puhutaan opetuksesta ja oppimisesta korkeakoulukontekstissa. Ja jossa voidaan visioida tulevaa, toisaalta saada tukea siihen arjen työhön, ja jonka jälkeen sitten voidaan ottaa niitä omia kehitysaskeleita siellä omissa yksiköissään ja omilla kursseilla omien opiskelijoiden kanssa. Kiitos minunkin puolesta ja toivotan teille antoisaa päivää. Maria, du får fortsätta.
God morgon på er och varmt välkomna till Digit-seminariet idag, också på svenska. Jag representerar EduLab, fungerar där som pedagog tillsammans med Sören Granlund och Sanna West. Och så har vi Magnus Blussi som idag har koordinerat de här tekniken och allting så vi får det att fungera. Tritonias EduLab har också under många år fungerat som en koordinator mellan våra högskolor i tidigare projekt. Det här förmiddagens program håller vi här i Nissi nu på morgon. 11.30 till 12.30 har vi en lunchpaus och eftermiddagens workshop och pop-ups en våning upp här för trapporna. Och vi har också en workshop som Sanna och Lotta drar som är i Vasa universitets huvudbyggnad. Men det finns skyltning dit. Ni har också alla en sån här Padlet-lapp framför er. Ni får gärna sätta mobilkameran mot den och så kan man diskutera i Padlet om man har intresse för det. Ja. Jag vill också påminna om att den här sändningen bandas så att ni är medvetna om att det dokumenteras i den formen. And now I think we have the great honor, or I have the great honor to present our first speaker, our project manager for the Hella project and professor Mikael Uljens from Åbo Academy. But at the moment, I think you are sitting somewhere in Denmark, maybe. Okay. Warmly welcome to you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm so impressed by this introduction, I must say. Lotta, Sanna Eronen, Maria Sören, and Sanna West. First of all, I would like to thank you so heartily for your efforts. I think this is a wonderful way of concluding and starting again, so to speak, because that's what teaching anyway is about. It's about coming to a conclusion, well, to reflect what has happened, and then again have the, I mean, vision towards the future. I'm sitting now at the moment I'm sitting exactly in the center of Copenhagen in my hotel room. I'm heading off to the university for more lectures today. I'm invited here for a couple of days to talk to students and teachers about the ideas also that are framing and carrying Hella project. And that's a good example, in fact. I mean, to contribute in this way. Also, I'm very happy that pedagogical fundamental ideas that we represent and we have tried to develop in our project is gaining interest internationally, I must say. I have a couple of slides that I have prepared, and so I wish to share them with you. Let's see how this works. Okay, I was asked by Lotta to talk about the future of Hella, but you can't talk about the future without saying something about what has happened. First of all of you already mentioned a number of people, and I'm trying to list all of them here, but I think there are many more. This has been a wonderful journey as a collaboration between different universities, different expertise, and I really hope this will continue. I will say something about the future as well, but this is something unique, I would say, the culture of collaboration that also Lotta emphasized. We are focusing on to design a hybrid campus model. The main task in this project has been to develop a 60 ECTS, higher education teacher module. We are operating in 3 languages, as was evident in the introduction. If you think about all the teachers and researchers involved in these universities, we're talking about 2,200 teachers and researchers, and that's our target group, so to speak. The whole project has had a strong international focus, and we also have had in mind to develop a concept and a package that also maybe could be interesting for universities abroad, so to speak. We have been working with 3 packages. First, to develop this new curriculum. As I said, the principles that have been guiding us is collaborative teachership. We believe strongly in that shared experiences, not only in reflecting, but also planning and coordinating your activities. I think that's what Sanna pointed out was really important. of course, like everything else, education is a question of a lifelong professional development. I mean, we need some initial knowledge and qualifications, but we have designed the program so that you can continue to take part when you have your formal qualifications, like the people in the universities of applied science need. We also emphasize experiential learning, not only for ourselves, but also for the students. We also think that teaching and developing teaching can be research informed. And this should be really, really self-evident at the universities, because this is a paradox. Universities are doing research on everything else but their own activity. And I think we should, in all universities of applied sciences and the research universities, to allocate more resources, focusing on what it does mean, what it means to be teaching. But also, given that we are teachers and researchers in the third level, so to speak, the highest possible level in the Western and the globally seen, I mean, at the highest educational level, we know what the research is. And we hope that couldn't we turn that attention, that mindset towards our own activity? Can we become researchers in our own teaching? And so I think somebody already said here in the introduction, it's so important to accept the difficulties we have, so to speak. If you think about what is learning, what is true learning, if you think about true learning experiences you have gone through as individuals in your professional life or otherwise, it's often connected to a kind of crisis. You lose something, you suddenly realize that something that you have had, that's some vision, some competence, some understanding of the world that has been guiding you suddenly doesn't work. To learn is to go through a crisis, to lose something, and it can also be very emotional. And that is exactly why teaching is also such a sensitive thing. And also teacher education. I mean, we try to create an atmosphere where you can feel safe, where you can open up, where you can share your troubles and problems and get support. Because that's an important thing to say from the beginning. Teaching and to learn to change as the teachers, it goes deeply into ourselves as individuals. Also, we have tried to combine this or construct the curriculum so that we combine basic and continuing education. Also a flexible curriculum. My idea about, I mean, if you think about what kind of personal teaching staff you need at the universities and universities of applied sciences, everybody's profile does not have to be identical. We need also special education qualification, we need multicultural competencies, and it's difficult to construct such a broad program that would take care of exactly everything. But instead we try to organize the curriculum so we reach a flexibility, and so that the organization as a whole becomes strong. I don't think I need to go through these different packages, but well, I just say that the structure has been developing. It started with one structure 2017, and we have continued to revise it. And I'm afraid, I think we are going to go through this once more again. But this is what developmental work is about. The second work package is, of course, to create these new courses and spaces. And this is the core activity of the whole HELA project. And I think this seminar today is a kind of where we can show off and demonstrate a little bit of what has been done. So I don't think I will say so much more about this. But look at the bottom of the page. It's about evaluating and contributing to redesigning teaching spaces, because that's what we do as teachers. We construct spaces and environments for learning, we often say. But I would say, no, we don't. As teachers, we don't affect learning. And that's a paradox. Often we say that teaching is about supporting learning, but I would say, no, teaching is about supporting studying, because studying is an activity we can be engaged in, we can try to learn. Sometimes we succeed, sometimes we don't. And what we can help students with is to help them and organize their activities so that they, because without their activity, nothing will happen. And so that's why I call the science of teaching, or the didaktik as we call it in Finland. Didaktiikka is the science of teaching, studying, learning process, rather than teaching, the teaching learning process. The final third package is that has become more important at the end of our project, and which we are operating and working with exactly now. From the outset, we said that Hella is going to create a new hybrid laboratory for educational development in higher education. And I think what has happened through the 3 years we have been working is that we have I think, already created an environment of collaboration between these involved universities. But I think this is exactly what we have to continue. And let's say, I have something here in the following. I think we, yeah, no, yeah, okay, maybe, yeah. But anyway, what I'm thinking about is that we should really create a hybrid laboratory, and we are involved now. We have been doing planning work. We have been discussing with the rectors and leaders for all involved institutions, and they all say what we have been doing is good. They appreciate teachers being involved in these activities, and they want to support. Also, the Ministry of Education has a clear idea about that this kind of activity should be supported and continue, so to speak. So I hope during this fall we would come to some kind of conclusion for how this laboratory could be working. I think Åbo Academy, the other universities have expressed clearly their interest that Åbo Academy should take responsibility for this, and in that, but we have this competence anyway. Even if Åbo Academy takes care of this, all this competence we need can be found in the different universities anyhow. So we have to continue on that. When it comes to the conceptual frame of reference, I won't talk too much about this because I think you have to move on with your program. But I would just, when the project started, this book was published. It's called Bridging Educational Leadership, Curriculum Theory and Didaktik. And the idea of this book, that in a way, it says that in order to understand an educational institution, you have to understand and have a multi-level vision on that institution. This looks a little bit complicated, but let's look at the bottom there. We have student influence. That's the teaching, studying, learning. We talk about the students are in the end those who decide what is going to be learned or not. Then we talk about different types of educational leadership. The first order educational leadership we call, that's of course the teachers leading students' studying activity. The second order leadership is a kind of collaborative curriculum leadership. It's not a leader leading the teacher, so to speak, but it's a leader leading the departmental work, the working community around curriculum leadership. And too often higher education, pedagogy has been only focused on the teaching, studying, learning in interactive relation, but we should also remember that we are all involved in designing the whole program, the bachelor's and the master's program. How should that be designed in order to meet the future challenges, so to speak? And we are, yeah, that's the program level. Then we have the university level. Don't go so much in detail into that. We have the ministry level, we have the supranational sixth order leadership level, so to speak. And well, I think what has happened in the Finnish universities is quite dramatical shifts when it comes to, for example, funding. The Finnish universities are very special in the sense, well, special. in the way that all our money comes from study points, exams, publications, and so on. And so we only get paid for what we do. And that forces us also to focus on educational issues. But I would like to emphasize that I mean, it's not nice to think about education only as an measure and a method for emphasizing the effectivity and so on. Education is much more, and what we see among our teachers and participants, it's not so much about this, being the effective teacher, but it's to create and go beyond what your own competence is, and that kind of openness is something we really appreciate. I think I will finish by saying that once more emphasizing the collaborative developmental culture. We have seen that developing between teachers, leaders, and not the least ICT, between levels and between universities. And I repeat, as teachers, we can adopt a researching mindset to our own experimental teaching activities. We have an outline for agreement of cooperation already done between the universities, but as I say at the bottom of the page, final decisions are hopefully made during this autumn. So by these words, dear friends, I'm a proud project leader. I must say I'm one of those who have learned the most during this project, I must say, and it has been nice to be taken care of by this group. And so if I think about the future of Hella, the seminar was mentioned, but I think what has happened here is that we have seen the power of collaborative work, and I think we will that is something we will continue with. I say here, thank you, Lotta, and everybody in the working group, Sanna, Maria Sören, and Sanna Eronen and Sanna West. I wish you all a very stimulating day today. So with these words, I would like to finish my part of this. Yeah. So over to you, back.
Kiitos. Tack Mikael.
Tack.
Vi funderade på det där sättet att om ni vill ställa frågor eller kommentera de här presentationerna, så det finns inte så riktigt mycket rum här för diskussion, men ni kan lägga inlägg i det där padletten och vi kan ta dem upp då sen senare kanske, eller ska mennään eteenpäin. Nyt kun meidän hankkeenvetäjä Mikael on saanut näyttää meille nämä isot kehykset ja raamit, niin hypätäänkin vähän ihan johonkin muuhun maailmaan ja otetaan tällainen yksittäinen esimerkki. Meillä Johannes Sumuvuori on Linginnasta englannin opettaja ja Johannes aina sanoo kyllä kaikenlaisiin haasteisiin, mitä hänelle heitetään, ja on sen takia tännekin saatu tänään kertomaan omasta opetuksestaan. Telling a story, a case of narrative gamification in digital learning. Ole hyvä, Johannes. Kiva, että olet täällä.
We're not so million miles away from what Michael told us. Thank you very much, because a lot of what he said in his introduction, I think this is just a kind of an application of that. Now, let's see if I manage to get our PowerPoints on. Do I have my screen sharing? It's not on. Yes. Here we are. First, please excuse me if and when I make funny faces. That is because I have an inflamed muscle at the back. There was a draft in our bedroom last night. I'm not getting old, as you know. No. But anyway, very glad to be here, and I'll tell you a good morning story. And fitting to our theme, which is future of digital learning, this began a long time ago, 7 years ago, when our colleague, she sadly passed away rather suddenly, and amidst the mourning we had to take care of the teaching somehow. One of the courses she had been teaching was business communication online. And that was offered to me, could you take this? I said, yes. I had been teaching online courses before, and I knew the gives and takes. Online, you get great freedom. In the digital world, you can do things you could never do in real world. But on the other hand, as probably everyone who's done it understands today, I suppose, everyone, is the problem of engagement. And okay, so I was given just a bare-bone course description, very short, some material that was clearly, I think, for in-class teaching. I saw that as a blank check. Right, I'll do whatever I like. And I thought I had been teaching simulations as well before, and I knew those work and those are engaging. So I thought, all right, I'll make it into a simulation. And then I thought, well, games are addictive. You know, kids and people play computer games online for hours on end. I'll make it into a game. 6-7 years ago, gamification was just like bubbling under. Not much research done. Simulations, lots of research, works well, great. But gamification, kind of a new thing. And then I thought, well, like the blockbusting games have a narrative. They tell a story. So right, I'll make a continuous simulation narrative role-playing game online. Super. Off I went, 2-3 months writing it, you know, being top of my world. Oh, this is brilliant, this is great, something new. Never done this before. The day before the course was set to start, I remember that day very vividly. I was walking from my office to lunch. It was an overcast day, and my palms were sweating. I realized what I had done. No predecessor really for this kind of thing. It could be a complete disaster. I was like, yeah, I was shaking. Oh, shit. Fast forward 2.5 months, and the student feedback anonymous was in the lines, not literally, this was the best course I've ever had anywhere. And I thought, well, that's nice. Fast forward 3 years, every group pretty much we had 160 applicants for 16 seats. Oh, that's quite nice. There was one problem. I did not understand why. Honestly, I knew, okay, simulations work, yes, games work, yes, but why this one? What did I do? What was the exact learning mechanic that made it work? And it remained such a mystery for me for quite a few years, so that I did not copy and repeat it, because I felt I wasn't sure. And this was one of the reasons I joined the HELA program. I wanted to really understand the learning mechanics that made it work. And so for the past year, being a part of the HELA program, and I discussed this course and with the teachers and with the fellow students who are experienced teachers themselves, and they had questions. And this is a sort of one result of the discussions we had. I'll focus on one particular part of why I think it works, the narrative. And I'll start with the problem it solved, which is engagement. Or this. Okay, here. There's a problem. There's a problem because I can't. You know, I'll get 2 sentences ahead and I could be over there. I can shout. Okay, so apologies, excuse me for that. I'm just a lively person who gets excited and walks away.
It's okay if you move like that here.
I'll do my best, but make no promises. So anyway, yeah, so I'll start with the problem it solved, which was engagement, or partly solved it. And then the problem it created, namely complexity. And then I'll finish up with a few words on the growth, where it has left us, me and the students. So, before getting into the first problem and its solution. Just a short, brief intro into the course. So the students apply for a job in a Finnish export-oriented furniture company. And they get a job. The marketing student gets a position as a marketing expert in the marketing team. And then they, accounting gets an accounting job and so forth. Then they do 6 days worth of work for this company on their own and in teams. Sounds simple enough. So, okay, let's take a look at what's in the narrative. Now, my inspiration came from commercial computer games. They make billions, so they must do something right. Now, one thing is that they do is they tell a story, but they don't actually. They don't tell you a story. They make you part of the story. That's the thing. The story becomes you. And they don't show you characters. They don't give you characters. They make you a character. And you're not just a character. You're mostly yourself, but you are an elevated self. You are a hyper self. You get abilities and responsibilities you do not have in your life. So the marketing student gets a position as a marketing expert here with strategic importance for the company. Elevated self. Okay, now a few words on, quite a lot of words, on how the narrative, how they tell this narrative, these games. Now first is they pretty much all of them follow the Propian cycle that some of you probably know. So they start with an equilibrium, things are mellow, and then tension starts to rise. And a problem is faced, and if the hero survives that, there's a new tension arising and a problem until you reach the final conflict. So that, survive that, equilibrium, happily ever after. And so that's what I did. So they have this, it has a main story for the player. It starts with something relatively easy. It's a procurement process. It's essentially like they feel like, okay, I'm just standing in and sending one email. No problem, easy. And then as the days go past, the student starts to notice that, uh-oh, this could actually mean millions in losses if this goes bad. Uh-oh. And sure enough, the ship sinks. And it's not the student's fault, but they have to solve it. Survive that, debriefing, lesson learned, equilibrium, happily ever after. Now, then also, the games, the way they lead the player through this narrative is interesting. How they make the player part of this is, okay, it starts easy, a simple task, something familiar, and as the game progresses, the game provides new challenges, new situations, new contexts. And if the player learns how to survive, they get to go forward. And so it goes, new challenges, survive, get forward, and at some point you have to reapply the skills you learned before, perhaps several, marry that with new skills, and so you go. Does that sound familiar? Yes, it's the spiral learning curve that is so famous in didactics for deep learning. Computer games make you hooked on learning. That's what they do. So, and then there's an interesting mechanic that's pretty much universal, is the point of plant failure. At some point, it provides you with something so new, or then just plain unfair, that you fail, the plant to fail. And so you have to go through as many times as necessary in order to survive and pass. A heroic achievement, adrenaline, serotonin, you're hooked. Jennifer is another teacher who now teaches the course, and she kind of, oh, this is what's happening. Yeah. So there you go. Now, a modern way to do this involves so-called side quests. Here, some of them are teamwork, some of them are individual. And the idea is that, and sometimes these are more complex, more challenging, even more interesting than the main quest. And the point is that these are places where you get to hone and practice these skills. So the spiral goes like this. And the main quest kind of trails one step behind so that you are prepared for that final conflict, the boss, and you're able to survive it. Yeah. So, one question perhaps remains that, all right, so this kind of sounds like predetermined. How do they buy it? That's their story. Their open-endedness is significant. So, okay, human beings are very predictable. That allows us to have a predetermined main story. But these individual problems, tasks need to be open-ended. That's a key part of it. So that there's an infinite number of possible ways the student can accomplish the task, even what the end result is, just like in working life. You have a problem, solve it if it's out of the box, but if it works, great, probably even better than a traditional solution. It's this possibility to solve things your way and having an end result that only you could do is what makes the story yours. Right. Now, probably quite a few of you have the same questions my fellow students had. Sounds a bit complicated. How much work is that? How do you assess this? And the answer is yes. It is extremely complicated. There's no way to get through that. The gradebook is a testament of the complexity of the assessment and the course. A key part of what you need to do, and what I found quite quickly, is that you need to keep it as simple as possible for the student. One way, again, was provided by these games. So if you throw everything at them, it's too overwhelming, too complex. So I do what the games do. The narrative reveals itself only chapter by chapter. And only when you have survived and passed and reached the learning outcomes of one chapter, you even see the next. You even have an idea what the next thing is. But from the teacher's point of view, there's no escape. Jennifer is laughing. She has now intimate experience of this. And so what I could only do is I can just try to help myself. Big part are well-crafted rubrics. So that when a student or a team provides something, I have a rubric from which I take okay, this needs to work, that, copy, paste. Best case scenario looks like it's personalized, individualized, it's just for you, although it's just mass customized. And then it, as a byproduct, cranks out a summative grade. But it all needs, the feedback needs to be formative, just like in the games. The students need help, and this is this hasn't not much to do with narratives, but I just have to say it about student-led learning. Is that sometimes I see a brutalization of student-led learning being get students together. Here's a task. Here's a material. Off we go, and then I'm back for a summative feedback. That's just negligence. Wouldn't work here either. If you look at the kind of the didactic triangle, firstly, on a narrative point of view, something interesting, by the way, happens. The student and the content merge. they begin to be the same. And it's not just that the student creates content for other students. The student is content for the other students. They are a character for the other students. But if the teacher is not there to provide formative feedback and be there continuously, then it just goes somewhere. You need to be there. I see your team is doing that. Oh, have you seen what the accounting team is doing? Have a look. So anyway, it is a lot of work. And what I can only do is do this formative rubrics and feedback that then cranks out as a byproduct a number that then gets into the gradebook, and the gradebook cranks out a number just to make it a little less work. So, last, where are we now? Well, from the student's point of view, things apparently are peachy. There's a big part of this is self-determination. Myers talks about how self-determination is so important for growth, for Bildung, and this certainly happens there. And there is co-determination in the teams and between the teams. And as a result, the students, I think what makes it perhaps so enjoyable for them is that they see this growth. They find their place as an expert. They find their expertise. That the research and development guy gets there and gets to talk about, I think this company really needs a Scrum system. And oh yeah, others go, oh yeah, well, interesting, yeah, great, and so on. They find their place. And the marketing guy finds their place and provides something that no one else there can. And they learn how to communicate that. They find their place and position. But how about me? Me as a teacher. How do I engage? Now, how many have taught online courses? How many have struggled with your own engagement to be interested in teaching online? Yeah. How many prefer in-class teaching to online teaching? Quite a few, yeah. So, how do we keep ourselves engaged so that the online place is a happy place to be and we want to be there? The first years, for me, no problem, because I created something new I hadn't seen anywhere else. And sure enough, there were problems, and I solved them. Great, achievement, serotonin. And for many years, I was so privileged to have so many teachers wanting to be there that usually very mature students got in who had already years of working experience. So like the research and development team went suddenly about, this company doesn't have a Scrum system, it should have a Scrum system, and which one is the best? And I went, what? Honestly, and so I learned so much from marketing and accounting and all of these things. I was there to teach them and coach them in communication. So I learned so much. Being a proper coaching leader, a managing director who's the least competent in the company. So I learned a lot. In the past couple of years, not so much. It works. I haven't learned that much anymore. It feels like a routine now. Thankfully, I have Jennifer. Also, with Jennifer teaching, it would be all me, I'll be all. Fuck that. So much work. So that's my next stop, my next problem to be solved and place to be. How to make this interesting to me. How to grow from now on. Thank you for listening. Do we have time? I don't think I made like funny faces because of the muscle, funny faces for other reasons. Do we have time for questions? 4 minutes. I was on time. Good Lord. Do you have any questions? Jennifer, look, because we have apparently Finnish crew in the morning, not very talkative. But Jennifer, do you have like any comments on this? Because you now teach the course.
I need to both of them. It was quite an experience for me, and I'm still learning. I personally didn't have, for what it's worth, at all enthusiastic relationship to online teaching before, and I'm not very digital by nature. So it was a big step last year with all of this, not just for this course, but generally. With this course particularly, but I must say it was a very positive experience. I still think I can grow quite a lot in terms of both the material and how to handle the feedbacking and everything, but it's an excellent course. And there might be details here and there that can be fixed, but I think what I loved particularly was the fact that they are not spoon-fed, that you have to, it's an advanced course, and there is no one way. Some students have that Silvio mentality of the secondary school mentality that, you know, tell me how to get a 5. Give me the exact, you know, if I follow this, I'll get a 5. You know, that's your job. You know, they can have that attitude. And what I saw in your design, amongst many other things, was that, like in working life, you actually, there are many ways to solve it in an excellent way, and that you have to remind them of that. Be creative. Think. How do you communicate excellently, and how are you a good colleague in this situation, but not too good? You know? Yeah. Like it was, the simulation worked in that way, and also the kind of fostering them towards adult working life through English. You know, in a quite a real way. So I was impressed by the way that worked. Yeah. In terms of letting the adult learners and adult users of English in these forums. Yeah.
And a big part of this, although it's not really so much about narrative, it's connected to it, is that license to fail. Yeah, there was a question there.
Can you repeat my question then? So otherwise.
Yes.
Yeah.
The catch box.
Or give me the catch box. Yes.
Shall we try it? Oh, but it's the full muscle.
Just repeat it. I have a short
muscle, so
I have a short question. Is this all? Yes. My question is, when you do this kind of gamifications and new ways of teaching and thinking, do you easily find like tools for doing that? Or is it that you always have to like start programming, like you said yourself, you're doing it 3-4 months? Or do you find like already made good tools that you can use? And do you feel it's too expensive if you find one, or usually there's some kind of licenses and things like that?
Yeah. Do these microphones work? So, yes. So, great question. My problem is that I teach languages, advanced communication skills, and there aren't that many tools. So yes, it boils down to actually doing it yourself. And then also at this moment, the technology quite isn't there where you could automate many of the things. So it is, in a sense, a live action role play, really, it's just in digital world. And then the supporting game elements, I need to do myself and even, program myself. Although my programming skills are extremely simple and rudimentary. The pre-existing applications and games I found are suitable to some extent in basic courses in English in Finland at the moment. There's more if you go like if it's on self level, it's something like A or B. But when you get this far, you're on your own. Did I answer the question? Yeah.
I just made the question actually because I think here's quite good gamification companies, even in Vaasa, that could be like part of doing this. I think they would be interested if they find a new way to teach. They could be interested to be a part of it. Yeah. Just make development for their own products.
Did I just find my place of growth and make this interesting? Yes. Because there are, like, I'm restricted to Moodle platform, and if I could take it off that and have a free reign for the setting, I mean, it's like a theater. So if I could create the setting and the parameters and the frame elsewhere and have freedom, it would make it also probably easier and then also less work after the initial work. Are you a representative of a game?
No, but I can introduce you.
Yes, please do. On that bombshell, we're all happy. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you, Johannes. That was a very engaging speech, and I would really like to take part in your course also. Now we go forward to the next speaker. I hope we have her with us. Eva, can you hear us? We can't hear you. You have the microphone close.
Yeah.
Now, maybe. Did you start to say something?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Do you hear me now?
Yes. Now. Thank you. We see you and we hear you.
Okay. Good.
I have the great honor now to introduce our dear colleague and researcher from Sweden, Umeå University. She will tell us something about a very interesting thing, R, there, and I, something for the future education. Eva Morell Olsson, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. I will just try to start my presentation. See if, yeah. Okay. Is it there? You can see it?
Yes, we can see it. Really good.
Yes, thank you. I'll just move on my desktop. Thank you for inviting me for this presentation, and I will talk a bit about my research area in AR, VR, and AI. A lot of shortenings, and the question for today is this technology something for the future education? I will present myself a bit and what I'm doing. I'm working at Umeå University at a department that is called Applied Educational Sciences. So I'm doing research in, so to speak, IT and learning from preschool to higher education and working life. I really like technology, so to speak, adapting technology, and especially with this focus on learning and how technology can enhance learning in different ways. I'm also we belonging to kind of a weird family, because we really like, my husband and I, we have a shared interest in home automation. So I think it's almost 15 years ago when we started to automate our home. So we have a server in the basement, so we can turn on lights and wherever we are, if we are in US or Australia, or we even have a camera in our mailbox, and we'll get a notification if we will have email, and not emails, but if we got ordinary mails in the mailbox and so on. And today that is, in fact, the technology has enhanced so much, so that is so much easier today than it was 15 years ago. So in this case, I really like to try out technology. I don't know how to code. I'm not a coder at all, but I really like to try out, and what is the possibilities and what is the challenges when we use technology, for example, in teaching. My research areas are the most is, of course, classroom practices. I have conducted some bigger projects in school, founded by the Swedish Research Council, how innovative teachers are designing their teaching with one-to-one computing. In this case, it was tablets. So I have visited several municipalities and schools, and together with a colleague, and also classroom practices in higher education. I have turning towards more to higher education now. And a second research area I have is gamification, and in this case I have not focused on using games, existing games in teaching. more creating games where the students are the players, so and the more or less the avatars in games. I will talk a little bit. I will touch upon that. But I will also talk about AR, VR, and AI projects. I will present projects I have been conducting the last years using these technologies. And I'm also sometimes really trying to connect these research areas together and investigate how can we use technologies in different ways, and what's the purpose to use, the aim for using different technologies, and what are they enhancing in teaching, for example. The last 3 years I have been involved in a project that is called the World's Smartest Dental Clinic. And the last 1.5 years I am conducting, so to speak, this project. It's for a year ago, a new dental clinic opened here in Umeå. And Folktandvården Västerbotten, the dental healthcare in our area, Västerbotten, decided that this clinic will be a test bed. It will be a smart clinic in that way that we will try to use smart devices. We will try to investigate smart ways of working in dental clinic to optimize for access for patients and also investigate ways where we can optimize the work at the clinic and using technology. And in this case, the digital technology will be the catalyst of changing ways of working. So this is a project we am conducting for the last 1.5 years. And we are really trying out different ways of technology. For example, the AI, I will talk about it a bit later. I'm also co-founder of a small startup, Next Step Enterprise, with a colleague. And in this company, we have developed an instrument for teachers for analyzing their teaching. So we call this teaching analytics. And in this way, we are teaching the teachers really to analyze, plan, conduct, evaluate their teaching. And we usually say that usually teachers have 3 didactical questions: why, what, and how. But with this company, we're giving them 13 didactical questions when they are planning their teaching. But I will not talk about this today. Smart devices. Well, my journey into this area started in 2013 when I was the first Swede in a way to win the Google's competition to get or to buy, in fact, a Google Glass. So I had to go to New York to fetch my Google Glasses and go back, and it was a huge hype around them. And as a researcher, of course, I started to ask questions. What can you do with this? What can you do with this kind of technology in teaching? So the first project I conducted was in 2013, and it was in a dentistry program where we used the Google Glasses to take pictures. In this case, you see on the picture on the left is the teacher, and she is showing 9 students in a small room how you conduct and examine a patient's teeth. And you can imagine a dentist having their hands almost in the mouth. So the 9 students, they don't see so much. So in this case, we wanted to facilitate this for the students, so it would be easier for them really to understand and to see, in fact, what's happening. So the picture in the middle is taken by the Google Glass, and then we projected it on a white screen. So when the teacher were talking about a teeth or a tooth or something, the students could look at the white screen and see better. That was really my first project in this area. In 2014, I've conducted 2 projects in using the Google Glasses. One was called Tagga 2014. Tagga is a pun for tagging or pep up. And Umeå was the European capital of culture in 2014. So we connected this project to that theme. And in this case, I had 2 groups of students that was helping me. One group of students that was studying interaction design and architecture. So they developed a concept solution for the Google Glasses with dependent information. Now I lost the word. Dependent information positioning. Oh, that is not correct. But they conducted, so when you enter something, for example, the statue with a big heart that was a symbol for this culture theme, when they entered with the Google Glasses, it was possible to push information to the Google Glasses. And another group of students, they created a gamification activity where the 2 young students, they got the clues. Sometimes they got clues to their specific glasses, and then they had to combine these information to solve a problem. And they had some physics experiments, they had math, we had poems, and very different kind of things. And it was more like this gamification activity was created like a treasure hunt, so to speak, but in real life. And the second project in 2014 was, I was back in dentistry program, but in this time we tried to facilitate the communication between the teacher and the students. And in dentistry program, when the students are starting to have their own patients, they are in a big hall with operators within it. And usually they write on a whiteboard, booth or operator 23, operator 15, and so on. And then the teacher are walking back and forth to this whiteboard. Okay, I have to go to operator 23 and back to the students and back to the whiteboard. And the students, they have to wait and wait and wait. So in this case, we tried to communicate, to have created a digital communication between the teacher and the students. So the students had an iPad. So they started to experiment, taking pictures and sending to the teacher, and the teacher got notifications within the glasses, with the Google Glasses, and could read what the students had problems with. And also the teacher could answer the students via the Google Glasses instead of going to the whiteboard. And some of the results was that the teacher said when the students sent several requests for her help or something, she could start to prioritize. This case will go quite quick, and this pair of students, it's but the third one, it will take a long time, so I start with these 2. And even when we went for a coffee break, for example, and when the teacher said, oh, I don't have to be worried about if they are needing me, because they can contact me while I'm sitting here. So she could relax more, because she knew that we really could be in contact with her. In 2015, I had conducted 3 small projects, so to speak. One I was doing completely by myself, and it was in schools. I was investigating how teachers could use Google Glasses and this kind of glasses, and how in different ways, and what they found the possibilities and challenges, so to speak. I also had a project with a group of interaction and design students, and they made an application for ambulance staff, where they could use like a GPS, where they could have the location and got it in front of their eyes. And the staff at the ambulance, they said that it was easy for them for have the location just in the corner of the eyes, instead of have to turn their head where they had their GPS. Now, of course, we could also have this kind of technology in cars with head-up display in front window of a car. But in 2015, I don't think you could buy cars. I'm not sure, but I don't think you could buy cars with that. And we also tried live streaming, where the nurse could be in contact with the doctor at the hospital that really is taking the decision, and the doctor really could see the patient. And in this case, it was also because the ambulance staff, they need their hands for doing stuff, so they will have technology on their head instead. I also conducted a gamification activity with the schools and a group of students, and they were studying industrial management and economics and applied physics, I think it's called in English. In 2016, I also have gamification. It's a pedagogical method, or more or less a strategy. I think it's very interesting, and I guess I didn't hear the former presenter, but I think he was also talking about gamification a bit. And I also had a group of students that developed a concept of using VR for students abroad. And in this case, it's not Swedish students abroad, because when we have our communication unit, when they are going to big conference around the world, they want to trying to get more international students coming to Umeå and to study in Umeå. And in this case, the students created 23 movies about being a student in Umeå. And the purpose for this was that if we could let students, international students, step into in our environment, even if it's just a digital one, and having this immersive experience of being a student, we would expect it would be easy for them to apply in a way. That was the aim of the project. In 2017, I also had a project in dental healthcare, and in this case it was interaction and design students that made a concept for HoloLens. And HoloLens is an AR glasses that you can project and interact with virtual objects. And if any one of you haven't seen, I will just put them on, and you can see. And this is in fact a computer. So in this case, you will have a computer on your head. So they made a concept solution how a dentist could use this technology while treating a patient. So because dental staff are really, or I would say it's a great need for them to use voice and motion control devices, because they need their hands for treating the patient. And I also had a group of students, since I was involved in this the world's smartest dental clinic. So they got the mission or the assignment to create, or to not create, but to find what kind of technologies could we use in dental healthcare in the future. So they created the concept solution for an app for both the staff and patients for digital communication. They suggested a human robot, and they also suggested how we could use and create technology that is voice controlled, for example. And in fact, in the dental clinic, we have in fact been implementing some of these ideas so far. I also had a small project and studying how we can use VR as a learning environment for pupils with concentration disorders, when we are decided that we will really take the real life away and step into a virtual reality and see, could it help them concentrate while learning? And these past 2 years, I have been involved in a project together with the chemistry department, and how we can use both augmented reality and virtual reality in chemistry teaching. So in 2018, I conducted a small project both in higher education and in high school. And of course, I was involved in this dental health care. Is it possible to use VR and AR in chemistry teaching, for example? The pedagogical challenge we have in chemistry, and I'm not teaching in chemistry, but the chemistry department, a pedagogical challenge they have is to help students to understand the transformation from 2D to 3D. For example, they write the molecules in 2D on papers, and they have small signs to describe how the molecule is looking in 3D. And this transformation from 2D to 3D is very, very hard for the students, even at master level. So we will conduct a project where we are trying to use both VR for really complex molecules, where we are using, I think it's an application called Nanoom. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. But in this case, the students will step into this environment and they can really interact with the molecules. And we will also use, try to use and investigate how we can use HoloLens for this kind of transformation and help the student with this transformation. And a difference with the HoloLens or augmented realities, it's possible to really go around a molecule. You can interact with it, you can turn it around. But in this case, it's not that easy, at least for us now, to have really complex molecules. But this application in VR, you can have complex molecules, but you cannot, in that case, go around the molecule, so to speak. And at the dental clinic, we have had a project where we have tried to use an artificial intelligent dental assistant, Ida. And in this case, we have her on a wall in the waiting room, and we have tried to see if we could, if patient could ask questions they have and can't answer, because in dentistry there is a really lack of dental nurses. So we would like to have dental nurses available to assist the dentist. And a lot of time is the dental nurses are they are answering the phone because the patients are calling, they want to book or rebook or cancel appointments, even if they can do that on the web. So in this case, we have an idea that we might use artificial intelligence where patients can phone to the clinic and they will meet Ida that can ask them questions and then decide, do you need to go to the dental emergency? Can you book your appointment yourself on the web? Or if they need to talk to one of the dental nurses. So that is someone we have an idea that could be developed. And if we see this just a crash course in different technologies, but what we could see that Internet of Things, for example, where it's possible to collect data, and we have technologies like AR and VR that we can visualize data or visualize virtual objects and so on. And then we also could have AI where we could analyze data. And in this case, you can see that it's possible to try to use technologies and how we use technologies for different purposes. The time is very short. I think I will go further. And when I'm using technology, I really try to see for the pedagogical perspective in this. And in many cases, when we implement technology in organizations, we think that, oh, it will look so great, that the technology is so fantastic. But then something happens on the way when we get the users to use the technology. And the pedagogical perspective is really addressing these issues where staff or patient or teachers in school or university teacher or students, when we use technology. And in this case, I think it's very important that we start with the why. Why are we using technology, and in what way can we use it, and how can we implement it in the best way? If we look into the future, this kind of technology is also increasing, not only to wearing glasses on the head, but we have something that is called attachable computing. Nowadays, it's in fact possible to implement technology in contact lenses. I know that both Google and Samsung are developing this kind of technology, and it's possible to take pictures and so on. And then we are starting to, and in case this is really raising questions about integrity, when people, for example, are using technology almost inside their body and taking pictures, and then we can start have questions about integrity when we don't see that people use technology. When we have HoloLens and things on our head, we really are aware that people are using technology. And in the future, also, it's possible. I know that there are research projects that we could implant lenses, operate lenses in the eye with AR technology. And that also raises these questions about being a cyborg and integrity and so on. I guess that will be at least 10 years away, maybe a couple of years since the first human beings are really using this as consumers. I mean, as consumers, but it will be a couple of years away when it will be ubiquitous, so to speak. Well, is AR, VR, and AI, is it something for the future? Yes, of course, I think so. Otherwise, I wouldn't do all these kind of projects. I'm interested in explorative studies. But what I think is important when we implement this kind of technology is really to start with the why. Why are we using it? Is it just for fun? Okay, we can have an activity where it is just for fun, of course, but we really need to know and for a teacher to be aware of what do we want to achieve when we are implementing technologies like this. I think it's very, very exciting, and I like this area and the explorative way of using technology. I think I need to stop there because I think my time ran out, and hopefully we have time for some questions maybe.
Hej Eva.
Hej.
Tack för en intressant presentation.
Tackar.
Do we have any questions for Eva? I haven't got access to the Zoom chat at the moment, but I don't know. There it is.
Yeah. There are
no questions. No. But Eva, I have to ask you, what are your 13 didactical questions?
They are quite many. In fact, we also need to look at the environment, for example. How do we, for example, when you're sitting in an auditorium, it's not possible to collaborate. And how do we for example, organize the furniture, and what do we signal when we organize the furniture in a specific way, and also about the content, for example, who is allowed to choose the content? Is it the teacher or is it the student? And these 13 questions are addressing more or less or examining teacher-centered teaching, or if the teaching is student-centered, so to speak.
I really liked it that you included more questions, because sometimes people simplify the teaching profession to only a what and how. But Johannes and Eva pointed to a change of content. Johannes uses a method that changes the content, but also the position of the teacher and the student. And when I listen to you, Eva, I think that you're saying the same thing. Something changes when the students interact with virtual environments, with augmented environments. And this is what excites us. And I hope it excites you, because maybe our students can gain a deeper learning, a deeper understanding because of this. But
that's
it
the
also
purpose.
changes, yes, but it also changes the time and space frames.
Yes.
And
it makes teaching more complex. It's getting even more complex.
And there was the word complex, as Johannes also used. And I think this is something we should respect, because teaching will never be easy.
No.
But it can be very exciting, but frustrating too.
Yes.
Scary.
Let's make the teaching so fun.
Yeah, it makes it fun. But thank you so much, Eva. I wish you a good day over in Umeå, in Västerbotten.
Thank you.
We are here in Västerbotten, which makes sense in Swedish.
Yes.
I now have the great honor to introduce our keynote speaker. She's also my friend and colleague, Linda Mannila. She is affiliated with Åbo Akademi and Linköping University. She calls herself researcher, entrepreneur, and world improver. And I like that. I like that she wants to improve the world. Research can do that, but it's not enough for Linda, because she has established a non-profit foundation called Make It Finland. And I asked her, what does Make It Finland do? And she said, we want to support digital competence for everybody. No, it doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, you need digital competence. We wanted Linda to join us here today because what we've been listening to so far are different kinds of digital processes. AR, AI, VR, narrative, game-based, often are connected to digital processes. But if we go into this digital world, which we do constantly, we are now digital. All of you have a computer in front of you, a phone in front of you. All of them are probably collecting data about you. We need to understand these processes, and we need to be able to examine them critically. And this is something Linda will help us do, I hope. Maybe. We'll see. Like Mikael said, learning is something that happens in the student or the participants. We can only facilitate and organize it somehow. Linda, välkommen. Nu får du ta över.
Sådär, det gick enklare än jag hade tänkt mig. It was easier than I expected. Very happy to be here. My name is Linda Mannila. I come from Kristinestad, Kristiinan kaupunki. originally, but now I live in Parainen, outside of Turku. Yeah, Parkas rules. Talking about, I had a problem this morning. I was actually following the seminar, but I had to sit in the corner over there because I didn't find any outlets. You know, the new Maslow's, this needs triangle. I didn't have any electricity or power left in my computer, so that's why I've been sitting in the corner back there. Not because I wasn't interested, but because I needed this very essential parts of our lives today. Let's see. Yes, I'm there. Everything looks good. So I have this very nice topic, not at all ambitious in any way, trying to future-proof higher education. I also have the problem of moving quite a lot when I give a talk, just like we heard earlier, but I'll do my best to stay here now. But please, if you see me wandering about, just let me know, because I might just do that when I'm talking. As Charlotte already mentioned, I'm a researcher at Åbo Akademi University and Linköping University. My main area is in computer science, so I am a computer scientist. I started out as a computer scientist, but I've been working with educational questions since 2002. And the background for that was actually when I was to finish high school. I had my Commodore 64. I had we got one network connected computer at my high school in Kristinestad the year I finished, the year I graduated. And all the time I'd been quite interested in computers. I mean, you could do quite a lot of fun stuff with these machines. I kind of like them, not just like playing games, but actually doing productive work on the computers as well. So I thought, okay, computer science, that could be something for me. But I didn't really know what it was all about, because, well, nobody at school had ever talked about computer science, because, well, we had this one connected computer, but that was it. So it was kind of a, buying the pig in a, I don't know if you can say that in English, at least you can say it in Swedish, and in Finnish, att du köper grisen i säcken. So I had another option as well, and that was law school. And in some sense, it felt that I knew more about law school because I had watched all of these American, this law series on the TV, which painted a picture of being a lawyer being something very intriguing, and you were part of very much fun and very much action. Well, it turned out that being a lawyer in Finland might not be that actionful. So at some point, I just decided, I'll just go for computer science. I was very happy to do so, but during my studies there, or already the first day, I realized that we were only 2 girls there. And that was also something that I didn't really know about that, because growing up in a small village outside of Kristinestad, well, talking about filter bubbles today, at least we know something about the world today, but back in those days, we didn't really know that much. We read Sydösterbotten and Vasabladet and watched text-TV. So nobody actually told me that if you go studying computer science, you will be only 2 girls there. Well, that happened. And that wasn't a problem either, because I realized that, hey, the boys are quite nice to work with as well. But during my study times, I realized that it wasn't a problem of girls not being there. It was a problem of the people talking about these things being a very narrow group of people, because there were mainly white males there. And this is something that studies have shown as well, that if you look at who people think are in IT, it's the white males with glasses. A Google study from 2015. And of course, it's not a problem because of them being men, it's the problem of it being a narrow group of people, because if we have a global world, we need to have diverse groups of people actually working with the things that become global, and everything you do digitally becomes global or can be global in one sense or another. So we end up with bias systems, etc., if we don't have this diversity in these teams. So in 2002, when I started to think about what I wanted to do for my master's thesis, I had already become quite interested in trying to get computer science to be something that would not only be something that everybody should learn, but also something that people feel the need that they have to learn or that they want to learn in order to understand the world. So it started out with an online course in 2002. Everybody who has been teaching online, who taught already in 2002 online? Yes, perfect. And we all remember the very fancy courses and all the web pages, they were so good looking. But we managed back then as well. And from that day on, I've been working then with education questions. Then it was more on, so I created an online course in computer science for high school students. So that was my first experience of online courses, but also of trying to take something that has been seen as a university topic and make it accessible to others as well. And since then, I've been working with educational questions in high schools. I also did my PhD on that, and then also during last year's more in basic education. Since we got the new curriculum, which has digital competence as part of it, programming, etc. So I've been working quite a lot with those questions. At the moment, we have quite a large research project in Linköping University together with Stockholm University, where we're following groups of students in grades 1 to 3, 4 to 6, and 7 to 9 in Swedish basic education, when they have now programming in their curriculum, and we want to see what happens during a time period of 3 years when teachers introduce programming in a way that they see relevant. So we don't come and tell them that, hey, do this and we'll see what happens, but we give them, they have the content they should teach according to the curriculum, and then we try to follow and observe the learning outcomes of the students, but maybe even more importantly, the attitudes and the experiences of the students during such an endeavor. And now I'm here today, trying to future-proof higher education. So let's see where this will take us. But this is the background that I'm coming from. So computer science education and looking at it from a view of the world is changing. How can we manage with this change in different areas? But to start with, I would like to, you've been sitting for quite a while now, and I know that this, and I won't have you doing any exercise now, although that would be quite good. But I would like you to take a moment or a minute or two to think about what do you see as characterizing the future of higher education. So we'll try to, Mentimeter and try to create a word cloud of words that you think about when you think about, okay, future of higher education. What are the 5? You may want to think about more than 5, but because of time restrictions, I only give you 5 options. So think about what are the 5 words or concepts that you see as characterizing higher education in the future. So you can go to menti.com on your phone or on your computer, and this is something that you can do at your own desk at home as well, or at your workplace. Maybe you're at your workplace at this hour. But so the people who are here on joining us online can also take part of the Mentimeter. So let's see. And the code is 95, 50, and 53. And I'll hide the results, because if you see somebody writing something smart, then you will take theirs instead of thinking of your own. That's what happens with kids, at least. So I usually do the same with adults as well. So mostly 5 words. Don't have to fill out all the 5. Maybe I should have said that as well. It's quite okay to just write down one answer as well and just submit it. Do you have a feeling for what might turn out as the biggest one? Because a word cloud is Jontes. Yes, I know. Let's see. We'll hold it. We'll see if he's right. So a word cloud is of course built in the way that the most frequent word becomes the biggest one, and so on. Let's see if we get 20, and then you can continue submitting your answers, even though I show the results. So Jonte, biggest one. Online. Any other suggestions? Flexibility. Digitalization. Ethics. Yes, interesting. So all the other ones were quite similar. So flexibility, online, and digitalization. They are in the same ballpark. But then we have ethics as well. Let's see. So now we have almost 30 answers. Now we have 30 answers. Flexibility, digitalization, online. All of those 3 are there. And of course, now if you've written something like digitalization with with an S, or flexible instead of flexibility, that can be there as well. It's just that it's smaller. Bildung comes there as well, virtual, tailor-made, student-centered, cooperation, commodification, digital tools, self-centered, etc., etc. I'll take this because now many of these are so small that you can't read them. So I'll take a screenshot of this and put it into the slides, and then you will get the slides afterwards. So then you can take a closer look at what's in there. And I've done this same thing with a couple of other organizations in Sweden as well. And flexibility, digital, online, those are always there. It's very interesting because if you do this, if I do the same with the word, for instance, digital competence, and you talk to librarians, you get one kind of result. If you talk to teachers, you get another result, etc. But if you think of future of higher education, well, of course, you talk to higher education people. So there seems to be some kind of well, people seem to agree that, hey, we've come to the point where we have to be flexible because the students are changing, their requirements, their way of consuming education is changing. So we also need to be flexible and adapt. Then it's another question on how to actually do that. We have to go more and more online, which is also part of the flexibility because students start to work earlier, they might live in different places, etc. So we have to be online. We can't, like Lotta said, that we are living in a digital world, and for education then to not be digital, that doesn't just work. We need to have digitalization there as well, in one way or another. But we can't lose sight of the Bildung aspect either. Just because we need to change doesn't mean that we should take away everything that was once there, right? So many of these things I'll try, and international, of course, and collaborative, etc. So we could just talk about this for 40 minutes, but I think I'll move on and try to go through the presentation as well. But we'll come back to many of these as we move forward in the presentation. So of course, many of these aspects that you already mentioned in the Mentimeter and that we briefly talked about, they are in some sense also the basis for the trends. There are lots of organizations who look at the trends in education, for instance. What are the trends that form our society? What are the trends that form our education today? And one of the biggest or most recent report, at least, is the one by OECD, which was published this year, on trends shaping education. And OECD has been publishing these reports ever since 2008, regularly. I think there have been 4 reports before this one. And in the earlier ones, technology, digitalization, IT have been lifted as a separate area. But now they also themselves, they point out that, hey, now we have come to a point where we can't do that anymore, because at this point we should actually have digitalization technology as an integral part of all of the other trends. It's not something that we wake up in the morning and realize that, hey, oh, all of a sudden everything is digital. It's something that we've been living through for quite a while, and now it should be part of everything we do, and we should think about these things. So they don't mention it explicitly, but it's implicitly there everywhere. So the 5 main trends that they see now as forming education is globalization. So what does it mean when we have a more global world? We talk about, we've had national states, we've had borders. All of a sudden we have an infrastructure that takes away all the borders. What does that mean for educational content, but also for how we arrange education? Democracy, we have more and more people getting a voice through the internet. Everybody can speak their mind, as to say, in both good and bad. We have this information flow that's ever growing. What does that mean? How can we handle it? How can we foster critical thinking to actually cope with all of those things? What does it mean for the democratic process when everybody gets the voice? Who should be heard? Who shouldn't be heard? Or should everybody be heard, etc. Security becomes a very big issue, not only in the way of securing our houses from people trying to steal our computers, but also personal safety. We already mentioned data. We share a lot of data. We have these integrity issues, which we might reason about quite a lot, or we might not think about them at all. But we need to be aware of those safety issues as well. We have security when it comes to the climate. We have security when it comes to having self-driving cars, economic security in a situation where the economical situation isn't that good for everybody, etc. We have an aging population, of course. We live longer. We're supposed to learn longer. We might be supposed to work longer. What does that mean? How can we as universities cope with that? What does it mean for education? And we have modern cultures. And with this, they mean that we have these international cultures. We have multicultural. We have a bigger degree of multicultural societies. We meet new people. We need to learn how to handle indifferences, work against prejudice, etc. But in a modern culture, it's also important that we learn that, hey, we can't go forward in the way that we've done before. We also need entrepreneurial mindsets. We need creativity, etc., in order to build new ways of working in these modern cultures. And they say quite a lot about these 5 trends. So for those interested, I recommend reading the report, Trends Shaping Education 2030. And 2030 is, of course, not that far away, right? It's 11 years from now. So it's not that, it feels like a long time until then, but it isn't. And of course, when you think about trends and education, it's not that trends form education. It's not one directional only. Of course, trends in one way or another have to affect education, because we need to, if the society is changing, if we see changes around us, no educational institution, regardless of whether it's higher education or lower levels of education, can stand in isolation against all of the changes that we see around us. So of course, education has to reflect the changes and the trends in one way or another. But we also need to remember that education is the way in which we can actually also affect the trends. And I think that's something that it's so easy to say that, hey, now everything is digitalized, we need to do something about it. But at the same time, as we start doing things about it, we start experimenting, we start seeing what works, what doesn't work, we can actually also affect the trends. We can find new ways of doing things that we might not have found if we hadn't tried it out ourselves. So also to see education as an active part in actually forming the trends in a way that we seem reasonable, but and also as something that we wish to happen. And when talking about these trends and how it forms education, we also end up in, okay, so a new skill set. And you've probably seen lots of these before. Lots of different organizations have ideas on what kind of skills are important today, tomorrow, and in 10 years from now. So this list here is from World Economic Forum, 10 skills that you need in order to thrive in the 4th Industrial Revolution, because the time we're living in now is called the 4th Industrial Revolution. They had another set a couple of years earlier. The ways in which the order was switched a bit, but emotional intelligence, that was the newest one on the list that wasn't there earlier. But otherwise, we see that these are, they are not, programming, for instance, isn't part of this list. Or knowing how to use Moodle isn't part of this list, right? They are meta skills, they are higher level skills, and of course, problem solving. Who has used Moodle has never done any problem solving? No, I mean, it's part of the things that we do, but trying to take a higher perspective and thinking that, okay, we need problem solving skills, we need to be critical thinkers, etc. And this is not new for any of us, but these are the kind of skills that we're talking quite a lot about. And then when you think about, okay, so what are we used to doing in universities? Well, you go to the university or to higher education to study something you are interested in. You don't go to the university to study creativity, in a sense. Of course, if you go to study arts, you are creative, all the subject areas should probably have creativity in it, but these are not the skills that are listed in for instance, the course catalogs or things like that. Another report, Future Skills, the Future of Learning in Higher Education, published in 2019 as well, has done they have done a Delphi study with educational experts throughout the world, and they have found 3 different areas in which a student or these future skills should be developed. So they have subject-related skills, so skills that affect the student, the person, him or herself. They have something related to an object, so they're not part of the person, but they're something that they need in order to handle the world around them. And then we also have these organization-related skills, which they then call world-related. And many of the things that we saw on the previous slide are found in these as well. But what caught my eye, in particular in this model, is the word self. Self-efficacy, self-management, self-initiative. And that's also something that's characteristic for the world of today, that we have this individualized view of our world, that this is my way of doing things, and I want and we foster this from kids being small. I mean, they don't want that phone, they want this one, and they want the kuori, the cover with red flowers on it. They don't want the one that the friend has, which has blue flowers. So this individualized view of having a market for one is something that we haven't had before. That we actually, I mean, when Ford started making his cars, they were all black, and we were happy about it. But today we want something that may not be interested to anybody else, but it becomes mine, and it becomes my way of looking at things, and it becomes my tailor-made, as we also saw in the Mentimeter. It becomes my way of for instance, studying or learning. We also have creativity. Digital literacy is part of the future skill set, but it's only one part. So, and all the others are other ones. And we have the self. We need to learn how to make decisions. We need to learn how to take initiative. We need to learn how to cope with our own study and take more responsibility for it. We need to be able to reflect, but we need also to be able to communicate with others and cooperate and collaborate. So all of these things together become part of the skill set. And agility. Does everybody know what agility means? Yes. So being able to move quickly, make changes, not being stuck in one way of doing it, but changing depending on what the circumstances are. In the same report, they also then move forward from these future skills that they identified to also think about, okay, so what are the pillars of higher education for the future? And they then found 4 different pillars. It says lifelong learning up there. So one is, okay, so we need to have a stronger focus on these future skills than we've had before. And they also realized when they then, in the study, they thought about, they discussed which one of these pillars are already under works, so to say. And then the future skill scenario was the one that people already work with in higher education. So we're already trying to incorporate these future skills in our education. The other one is multi-institutional pathways. So you can't just say that, okay, so I start studying in Åbo Academy and then I end in 5 years also in Åbo Academy, and I've taken all my courses there. And the HELA project, of course, is a perfect example of that we have many organizations coming together and having people collaborate with the education. Personalization becomes a big deal as well. We have data-driven tools. We have learning analytics that can help us find exactly the right task, the right content for a given student at a given point of time in order to learn exactly the thing that person should learn. And of course, none of this comes without risks or without drawbacks. So we also need to think about, if you have a tool that constantly helps the student go forward in his or her own pace. What that mean for collaboration? How do we collaborate if everybody just does their own thing? So critical thinking also, when we think about the new ways of working, is very crucial, that we shouldn't just take everything and do it just because it's possible, but also think that, okay, so what does it mean? What's good and what's not? What might we want to change? And then we have the lifelong learning, which we've been discussing quite a lot here in Finland now, since we'll get some part of our budget will be based on how much lifelong learning we're able to provide to people outside of the university. So this is something that's becoming very, very topical for us here in Finland, at least, as well. So what does all of this then mean for students, for instance? What can we expect from the students? Well, first of all, the change curriculum. We know that Finland has a new curriculum, right? It came into force in 2016, put more emphasis on digital competence. It has more focus on learning how to work with entities, thematic entities. They have more focus on learning in projects, etc., than it's been before. It doesn't mean that they are doing that all the time, which some news articles might give the view of, but these are the things that are already there in lower levels of education. So the question is, how will the students that come to study at higher education institutions change in just a few years from now? What will they expect? In what ways are they used to working? And will it be a cultural shock when they come to the university and nothing is the same? So how can we bridge that gap so that we better meet the needs of the students, but maybe also the other way around? How can high school start in a better way, prepare their students for actually coming to a tertiary education institution? And the high school, the upper secondary school law, it's being renewed in Finland, and there will be a requirement on more collaboration between high schools and universities. So that's the perfect way, in my view at least, that's a perfect opening for actually making this gap smaller in order to try to make it easier for both students to come to the university, but also for universities to meet their demands. But if you look at an international perspective, so Wiley has done a study, or well, you can't really study the future, but they've done kind of a study on looking at, okay, so what could future of education look like from a student perspective? So they will have this consumer mindset, because 2025, that's 6 years from now. So the students who will come will be, what are they today? They're like 12. They are just about starting Högstadiet or Korkeakoulu this year. So they'll have a consumer mindset. They will want tangible results, something that you can check off. And here gamification, for instance, is a good example. They will want an engaging experience, because throughout their lives, they've had the smartphone, they've had access to the internet, they've had access to all of this instant gratification. And of course, they also expect that from education. But they still also have challenges in the classroom. Help with writing, which we might not have had to do 20 years from now, but that might be something that we will need to do. Critical thinking, professional skills, etc. And how about faculty? What do they think about faculty? Well, they think that faculty needs to be technology savvy. That's something to put on your CV. I'm a technology savvy person. Multidisciplinary approach, this yhteisopettajuus also, that you come together, you teach together, you plan courses together, etc. And you can also move between fields. And then we start looking at how our own time schedule and think, okay, so when should I become the master chemistry teacher who can go all of a sudden and start teaching chemistry? But to see how others are doing. I mean, what are people doing when they teach chemistry? Maybe I could learn something from them. More efficient grading and assessment, because we will have other tools, and the tools will help us in one way or another. But then again, we come back to, can we trust automatic assessment completely, or do we still need to be there? Because we can have bias systems, we can an automatic assessment tool can only see what it looks at. It can't see all the discussions you might have had with the student, etc. So we still need a teacher to be part of that as well. New teaching models and a continuous learning environment. And this is also something that challenges us quite a lot, because we're used to working from 8 to 4, and we've been told that you shouldn't work more than that, and students should learn that they can expect to get feedback during work hours, etc. But in a world where we need to be more flexible, etc., how can we handle that if we don't answer the students when they want our help, etc. So what could then this look like? So I don't know if you've seen this, but KTH in Stockholm, who has seen this before? Nobody, perfect. So they've actually created their course catalog already for 2026, 2027. And they've done this as a vision work. So it's part of them actually now taking a proactive stance into, okay, so the world is actually changing. We don't know what's in there. I'm trying to future-proof what nobody knows what it is. So we don't know what will be there, but we might give it a try to create a scenario. What could it look like? And if we have an idea of what could be, then we can also make some decisions today towards that, what could be, both in order for it to actually happen, but also for those things that we don't like about the scenario not to happen, or at least minimize the risks of that happening. So here is just one side, one page out of this. So they don't really have like, you know, like courses that, okay, so you have to take this course and this course, but that's part of their idea. Because at KTH, they don't have a physical address anymore. So they're not placed physically in Stockholm, but they have tuition all over the world. Students they are not students for 5 years, they are lifelong learners and lifelong members in KTH. And they start with junior academy when they are kids. And then they are lifelong learners after that. And they never graduate like a bli klar. You never finish. You are always newly graduated. Regardless of if you're 12 years or if you're 71, you're always, well, you just graduated, because you always have something new to learn. Each student has an AI mentor helping them go through the day. That, okay, so as you see here, it follows your heart rate and everything. So they see that, okay, so you're a bit stressed today. Today you shouldn't try to learn that very difficult task today, but today you should instead maybe go forward with this part that you've enjoyed in previously, and might help you relax a bit as well if you get to do something that you enjoy. Student community becomes even more important than today also, because you don't have any teachers, but you have coaches. So all of us here, we would then be coaches. So we would do research, and then we will also try to make, all the time we would also update our education so that it fits the results we find in our research. And so on and so on. So if you're interested in reading this vision, it's only available in Swedish, but the link is provided in the slideshow, so you can have a look at it there. But so no physical location, you can learn anywhere, you can personalize your learning depending on what your next goal is, so you can be at different levels. My next step is to become CEO of that company. Okay, so what does the AI think that I need to learn in order to actually have the competencies needed in order to be the CEO of that company? Lots of partnership with companies, etc. And this isn't even 10 years from now. How many think this is realistic? Oh, we have many here who are very optimistic. Who thinks this is not at all possible, and why? Nobody dares to say. Okay, yes.
I think it's down to resources.
Yes.
So if you have coaching for individual students, unless you improve the numbers of mentors or teachers, you will not be able to reach this goal.
Exactly. So all of this is, of course, built on a totally different economical situation than we have today. But on the other hand, this also requires partnership with industry. So who knows what we might get from industry? Who knows what we could get if we then try to collaborate with more and more partners in society as a whole. We don't need these very expensive buildings either. Buildings are kind of expensive, etc., etc. So I think that but the big idea or the main thing when you do a vision like this is that you don't look at the that's impossible because that can't be done because you have to go into a work like this with an open mind and actually brainstorming all the ideas and not thinking about where will the money come from, because that problem it will be there at some point. But at least to think freely and think that, hey, it could actually be like this. What would be in it for me and what would be in it for the students? And then think, okay, so is this possible? Then, of course, another way of looking at it, so is the hive. Has anybody heard about the hive before? A couple of you have. So this is a model that's come from France. The hive is the Finnish version of it, and it started this year. So basically, it's a coding school. So you can go to the school. There are no teachers. You just get projects. You work together with others, and you work you work in teams. You work collaboratively in projects. You have a 24/7 campus in Helsinki. So it has a physical location, but you can study anywhere, anytime. You don't even need a degree from before. You don't need any tuition, etc. And I think that we will see more and more of these. It's not a future education. It's not a higher education. Sorry, it's future education maybe, but it's not higher education in that sense. But it's just something that gives you the competence. And that's also a question that we need to think about. So how can we compete? And if we have a world screaming for instance, then programmers. And you can either choose a degree of 5 years, which you have to compete to get in very hard. You need to have like a high school education from before. You need to be quite successful from before in order to get in there. While we also then have this 3-year program where you don't do anything but work on your programming skills in order to become the best programmer, and you're guaranteed a job when you finish. So how can we compete with these new kinds of initiatives in a world where maybe the competencies are more valued than the actual degree paper that you get from finishing or graduating from university? So how can we meet the same, well, we can't maybe compete with these things, but what are the things that we can compete with? And then we have teachers, we have pedagogy, we have community, we have all the things that this school doesn't have. But I think that we need to actually think about, okay, so how can what will be our vision, what will our mission be in.
I got a question in the chat from Andre.
Okay.
If you have AI that can manage the task, and the industry can hire it directly instead of people.
Sorry, can you take that again?
If
you can hire a teacher, why bother? So if you can, why bother hiring a teacher?
Yeah, if you have AI that can manage the task, and you don't need.
Okay. Well, now we get into something that we might be discussing for the rest of the day. No, but I think that's the problem. Because we have way too much hope in. I'm doing some research on AI in Swedish-speaking parts of Finland at the same time, so I'm kind of in this AI cloud at the moment. So I think that first of all, we have way too much belief in that we could have this AI that could do anything, and we have this narrow AI can do quite a lot of things today, and they can do even more tomorrow. But the problem is that if we have an AI that follows the student all the time, but they don't really see that. For instance, if we have a teacher that can talk to the student and learn all of these things and see that, okay, so today you're having a bad day. Of course, the AI can have that as well, but they still don't have emotions. They don't have that emotional aspect that the teacher has, even if we would have then the AI that could do all of the other things. And I also think that 2026, 2027, it's not even 10 years from now. I'm not sure if I would like to, as a person, I'm not sure if I would be ready at that point to just like go around with this and have no communication with any other person while doing it. But of course, I don't know. But I think that we need to start thinking about, so what are the things that we can offer than an AI or some other technological tools can't offer. And I think that's what they've been doing here as well. But they have the coaches, they have the research, because there is new knowledge all the time, new things that we learn, and the AI doesn't do the research. We as teachers do the research, and we need to make that accessible to the students as well. Let's see, what's the time? Yes. So I think that when we think about the Finnish national curriculum, for instance, that was changed kind of quite, in many eyes, it was changed quite a lot. And some people have been questioning, why change something that wasn't ever broken? Why fix it if it wasn't broken in the first place? And I think we need to remember also that it doesn't really mean that the old thing was something that was broken. It doesn't mean that the old thing was something that was wrong. It's just that things change around us, and we need to look at, okay, so what's next? And it doesn't mean either that we should take away everything we had from before. We need to think about, okay, so what should we keep with what we've done so far, and what new things should we take in order to move according to the development? Because everything will change regardless of whether we want it to change or not. And it's not only about the trends, it's not only about a financial situation or something like that. It's also about having students who have grown up in another world than we have, and they need to be, they have other needs. They will consume education in another way that we have so far, and also in the future. So I think that it's not about what's wrong, it's about what's next. That's a very good in the sense that summarizes it very well, that it doesn't have to be that the things that we've done has been wrong. It's just that we need to look at what's next. And in this, I would like to make two notes. And one of them is that we've been talking quite a lot about technology. We've been talking very much about digitalization, but also as the OECD trend report states, it should already be there. It should be part of everything we do. But still, we still talk very much about technology, but we need to remember that future skills isn't equal to technological skills. It's more about how can we work together with other disciplines, and so technology, what can technology do for other disciplines, and what can other disciplines do for technology? So what can we learn from each other, and what are the skills, and how can we move forward together in a world that then changes, where digitalization, sure, it does have a very big part in the change that we're seeing, but the technology isn't living in isolation. The more it affects other areas, the more important it becomes that everybody starts thinking about what kind of tools do we need, how should they work, what kind of AI mentors do we want, what do we want them to do, what do we not want them to do, etc. And also that the more diverse the teams who think about things are, the better the results will be. So there are studies that show that, and also all the biased examples from everything from cameras that have been designed to take pictures only when people are not laughing. Oh no, when they're not blinking, sorry. Every camera wants to take a picture when people are laughing. So when people are blinking, we don't want those kind of pictures, right? But that camera didn't take a picture of an Asian person smiling, because the eyes got so small that the camera thought that, hey, this person here is blinking. And that's not okay. And the same thing about the Instagram filters, for instance, not the Instagram, but other similar ones. There's a researcher at MIT who is looking through all of these face recognition apps. Many of them, they don't recognize a darker skin face. So if you want to put these puppy ears on you and you have a skin color similar to mine, sure, I will get the puppy ears on me. But if you have a darker skin color, it won't recognize your face, because the AI hasn't been trained on that kind of data. So when we think about the role that AI can play in the future, we also need to remember that all the decisions, all the technology, all the data that AI is trained on, we as people make the decision on all of those questions. And that's something we just can't say that, okay, the technology will do it, because technology won't be neutral. And that's something we need to remember. And that's why we actually need this, or the computer people to grab hands with everybody else, in a sense that we actually need to have more skills and more diversity also in the people who actually think about what systems do we want, what should they look like, and how should they work. And then the other one is that, of course, we have this one and done model of education. That's okay, so we come in and we finish and then we are done. But how can we create a system where we actually have an opportunity to go into this junior academy? I will go to, well, because I'm biased, I will go to Åbo Academy as in the junior academy, and then I will be a member there all my life. But then I can also come to Vasa Yliopisto, I can go to MIT, I can take courses at KTH with the AI mentor. How do we actually build that kind of system? And who should do it? Because this is also something that, okay, so everybody could start building their own, everybody has their own min plan until we find that everybody can have something similar, everybody has the same needs, so we can have a similar or a joint system. Who should take responsibility for actually starting to think about this? What kind of systems do we want? And how can we build education according to that? So, how do we future-proof something that's unpredictable? I think this is difficult in smaller organizations, but smaller organizations, they move more quickly. They can make changes more quickly, whereas organizations, well, where universities aren't known for being very, very agile in that sense, that we make big changes in a very fast manner. So I think that when we don't have any concrete facts, we don't really know what will happen. I think that the thing that they've done at KTH is actually quite a good exercise to do. To think that where would we want to be? For instance, the higher education in Vasa. What if you are the higher education of Vasa now? What will it look like in Vasa in 2026, 2027, or 2030, if you want to take a couple of years more? Who will be engaged? Who will be part of all of these the educational activities? Where will you sit? Where will your students be? Where will your students come from? Will there be an AI mentor? What will that AI mentor do? Etc. 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 And that's not something, we don't have that workshop today. That could have been kind of interesting as well, but I mean, 3 hours isn't enough. But to actually start thinking about how could we envision something for the future when we don't know anything about it. But I think that if we want to future-proof something we don't know anything about, we need to start thinking about what could be and what can't be, and then try to minimize the risks of what we don't want, and then try to work in a way that makes the thing we do want possible. And it's also way too easy to just ask ourselves the question, okay, what will happen? As if everything will just happen and we stand by as passive participants, or not even participants, we're just people standing by. But actually it's like asking that, okay, so where will this rocket land? Well, hopefully the rocket has been programmed in a way that it lands where you want it to land, right? So in the same sense, trying to think about where do we actually want this to go? Not just to say, okay, so now digitalization happens, this is what we have to do, or this is what will happen to us. But instead think, okay, this digitalization happens, what will we do about it? What do we want to get out of it? And the same thing with all the other trends as well. So how does it affect all of us? All the things, all the trends, everything that happens, it's very big. It's something that we need to think about. And also, what can and will we do about it? So that we're not just the passive side watchers, but actually active in taking part in that. So I wasn't able to future-proof anything. I'm very sorry, but I hope it's raised some ideas. And of course, these are things that most people already think about. But I'll end with one of my favorite quotes. by Kevin Kelly, who has written a very good book about the inevitable. If you want to learn about trends in our society and what he thinks will happen, it's a bit about technology though. So I recommend that book. And he has said that the most difficult part about looking at the future is unlearning what we know. And I think that's very true for the future of higher education as well. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Linda. I really like how you point out that we need to be active here, because sometimes I feel like education is blamed for not taking part and not being proactive. But at the same time, we are thrown into Moodle environments and we are thrown into digital systems that we don't really want or need. But this is such an intriguing question. What do we want? What would higher education look like if we could choose the systems, if we could collaborate with the system providers, with the AI experts, with all of these people to make it equal and great for everyone, really.
Exactly.
Do we have questions for Linda? You were very active previously, so I think there are questions here. And I will start with young Ella, who is also part of the HELA team.
Yes. Thank you, Linda. Not so much actually a question, but an observation and perhaps a few comments based on those. And I noticed that the sources that you were drawing and presented to us, where you had the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, you had the World Economic Forum, Economy Again, you had Wiley, the company, and you had the European Union, which to me is also very much focused on economy. And I think these sources and these organizations are actually a good example of sort of the trend towards the future of higher education, where higher education to an increasing degree is being instrumentalized in the service of economic interests, and where education actually also becomes commodified, where we actually start talking in terms of consuming education, not being engaged in studying, which Michael was talking about earlier. And I think this is quite a radical shift in our view on what higher education is. Because traditionally, I mean, we have viewed higher education, university, as the critical voice in society, where we are recognizing the economic interests, we are recognizing the political interests, but we take a constructively critical approach to them. We are sort of not affirming them, but we are engaging in deliberative discourse about what does this mean, what does these economical expectations, and what does this discourse mean for us. So I think actually we should recognize what the World Economic Forum thinks higher education is doing, but we should definitely not take these visions as given. Because if doing so, we are severely sort of narrowing down what higher education is, and we are actually also, I think, transforming the view of what higher education is, but we are also transforming the view of what society is. Society becomes primarily an economic thing. It's not about democracy, it's not about a large variety of other questions. And we are also narrowing down what needs to be viewed. So we should really think of sort of what kind of narratives are we drawing when we are thinking about what higher education is, or what imaginaries of what society or what we view is, are we drawing on. And we might actually end up with quite a different vision of what higher education is. Not instrumentalized, not commodified by something else.
I totally agree with you, and that's why I think it would be so important to actually sit down and think about these questions and paint the picture of, okay, so what could it be? And you could have several scenarios. In the Ulf Ehler's the Future Skills Report, he's a researcher, so he's not an economic representative. So they also make 5 scenarios of what could future education look like if the world is changing like this. So what could the future higher education be? And one of those is basically nothing happens. We still stay the same as we've always done. And that's a scenario. We could have that as our 2026, 2027 scenario. Of course we can. But the question is what will then happen to us? Will we have students in a situation when we have Hive, we have KTH with the AI mentor? And that's why it's so important to actually make these scenarios for the future and think about what can be and what do we want. Because we are the ones who should say what we want and what we don't want. But that should be made, those decisions must be made of what we know today, not about what reality we had 20 or 30 years ago. Because things do change around us. And then we can change, then we can decide, or well, maybe the ministry and the state, of course, also, and the economic interest will have a say in it, but then we can decide what do we want higher education to be like in the future. But I totally agree with you.
Did we have one more question over here? Back to Johannes.
If no one else has a question. First, apologies for my telephone.
I didn't notice it.
Okay, it rang, and I find myself tech savvy, and I thought.
Oh, you had put it on. Well,
yes.
It's okay. It happens even the best.
Then I used it again, and it gave me another result. And I think this is like sort of a metaphor of what we're talking about. Something happens in technology, we react.
Yes.
Something else, we react. It's a great way of reacting, and how I understand what you're saying is we need to reconstruct. We need to be part of the telling what it should be like. My question is, how to do this in practice? Namely, does it require legislation?
What, namely, does what require a legislation?
The reconstruction of technology, whether it's AI or something else, social media, and we find, if we reconstruct, so we study, we find what perhaps would be beneficial overall, should then that be supported by legislation?
I'm not really sure if I follow how legislation.
Let's take the example of the car.
Yes.
So the car was made, and at first it was driven by economy, business, and consumerism.
Yes. And
then we found in higher education and study research, for instance, the benefits of the seatbelt. Plus, it presented legislation, control, legislation of technology.
You mean that if we find better ways of doing things in education, should that be then part of legislating the IT business?
Rather than education, it's part, really complete part of reconstructing technology and telling what can be done.
Of course, I think this is, and it's not only education, I think, because if you look at what kind of technological solutions we get today, they have lots to do with, we need to have psychologists part of it, because we need to know about how do this, we have systems that nudge us into doing one thing, we have something that nudges us into another thing. So psychologists, looking at that critically, that is this actually okay? We need legal personnel looking at what's okay, what is not okay. Is it okay that we have, I mean, we have the GDPR and everything about data, we have everything about the sensors, the Internet of Things, etc. Legislation. We talk a lot about having voice recognition in our systems, what's okay to listen to, what's not okay to listen to, and what kind of Swedish, for instance, since that's part of my the work that I've been doing, what kind of Swedish do we want the systems to recognize? Is it okay if the systems will talk to us in Swedish, or do we want them to talk to us in närpeesiska if we are from Närpes, etc.? So I think it's not only the education personnel who would need to join the discussion, but everybody. And then many of those might actually end up in being some kind of legislation, because at the point we don't, on one hand, we have very old legislation that doesn't follow today's society. That needs to be updated. But at the same time, we have things that aren't regulated at all, that we might want to be regulated. So we're in some kind of weird, not weird, it's a very interesting time, let's put it like that, where we have to take a more, I think that we need to take a broader grip about these questions, and I think that the researchers and university personnel definitely need to be part of that discussion, regardless of what area or discipline you represent.
Thank you all. Thanks again once again.
Thank you. It was very nice being here.